What is going on, guys? So today I'm making a response to Stevie Breach. She made a video talking about his top 5 podcasts, and I decided to do the same. Before we get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Irish WHIPCAST, my friends Bobby and Kyle. You know Kyle from all my day in a life videos. They started a podcast where every other week they review 2 random WWE, ECW, WCW shows. They put them in a randomizer, and the first 2 that come up they watch and they review. It's every other week, so everyone has a chance to actually watch the shows and follow along with the podcast. I think it's a really cool way to pretty much get used to the network. If you want to go check that out, the links for iTunes and Twitter and Facebook and all that fun stuff will be down below. So I picked 6 podcasts that I really like. They're in order from I guess least to greatest, if you will. So starting off with number 6, we have the Steve Austin Show. He has a couple good guests. I don't listen to the ones that don't have guests on them. I like if there's a person I know, I'll listen to it. If not, then I won't listen to it. He had a really good one with Eric Bischoff. He had 4 parts with that. Pretty much Eric Bischoff went to his house and they just talked for 4 hours, and that was a really good listen. I would go check that one out. But I just don't like the whole fact that because he's with the podcast one, most of his are like on the phone, which I don't like. So I mean, if you just want to listen to the person talk, that's one thing. But I just like hearing the 2 in person, conversations pretty much. Number 5 is Talk is Jericho. That's also on podcast one. Sometimes they have the same guests as the Steve Austin Show because it's with podcast one. But other than that, I really like Jericho's podcast just because he has a lot of good interviews. He has one with Chavo Guerrero that went 2 parts where Chavo talked about Eddie Guerrero and Chris Benoit, the final days for both of them, which is really crazy. That's a really good podcast to listen to. And then recently Jericho had a podcast with a co-host, Edge, who they were interviewing Paul Heyman, which was awesome. It was in person. That was 2 parts, and that was definitely one that you should listen to. Other than that, Jericho also does like his the predictions for the pay-per-views, which is awesome. And he plugs his music a lot. So there you go. But Talk is Jericho is definitely one to check out. Number 4, if you know Brian Alvarez from the Wrestling Observer, on Friday nights he does a show called After Dark, and basically it's pretty much non-wrestling, talking about like science fiction stuff, like technology, like UFOs and all this like paranormal activity stuff or whatever. It's just really cool to listen to. He has a lot of good guests, and I've listened to pretty much every single one since I started listening to it. It just interests me. It's something to get away from the wrestling, and they have he has live calls sometimes where people will call in talking about stories and their thoughts on the interviewer and stuff. It's just a really cool thing to listen to that's not wrestling and that interests me. So that is honestly I like that more than the Wrestling Observer itself. So After Dark with Brian Alvarez is number 4. Number 3, a lot of people won't know, maybe some of you, but number 3 is the Duncan Show. Basically, Danny Duncan is he's a YouTuber, and he's also a drummer for the band We the Kings. His podcast just pretty much started. He's on like episode 20. I've been listening since the beginning. It's just a really cool podcast. It's just really cool. Another non-wrestling podcast that I like to listen to. He's on tour right now, so he has some podcasts where he's on the tour bus talking to other band members, talking to members of different bands other than his. And it's just really cool to listen to. It's like 45 minutes each podcast. It's just one of those that, like with After Dark, it's non-wrestling and it's something that interests me, and it's just cool to see or listen to a different side of there's someone different other than wrestling all the time. He's in a band, so he's on the road, and it's just cool to listen to. And he also has like little like games on there where they're kind of like trivia games, I guess, and the loser has to tweet something embarrassing or something. It's just really cool to listen to, and I would check out at least one show, just any of them pretty much. Maybe episode 20 is the one I suggest because that's with one of a drummer from another band. That's a really good one, and I just pretty much check that one out, and then if you like it, then go back and listen to the other episodes. But number 3 is the Danny Duncan Show. So number 2, I have The Art of Wrestling. I listen to this. So number 2, I have The Art of Wrestling. I've listened to this podcast so many times. I'm pretty sure I listened to every single one. I started late. I started around like number 50, and then I went back and listened to every single one. But honestly, arm wrestling, if you never like listened to it before, it's pretty much Colt Cabana talking and interviewing pretty much all his friends. It's not even an interview; it's just him talking with his friends and recording it. He's had really big names on there. Steve Austin is one. He's had Punk. He's had Kevin Steen. He's had pretty much anyone you could think of. It's also cool about Colt's podcast is you can pretty much like he could have someone on there that you have no idea who it is. You can listen to that show, and after that show, like you become the biggest fan of that guy just because of like you hear like the guy's story and you didn't know him before, and maybe you might see him at an indie show and oh hey, you were on Colt's podcast, which has happened to me like a lot of times. I've listened to people's podcasts with Colt, and after that I became a huge fan of him. So I mean, that's pretty much it. All I could say. If you never listen to the Art of Wrestling, I would certainly check it out. At number one, I have Creature Talk. If you follow me on Twitter, you see me tweet about the creatures or Nova or something like that. And it's pretty much all going back to Creature Talk, basically. There's this group of gamers that make gaming videos. They pretty much, they live in the same area and they have an office now, and pretty much once a week, it depends if they go places, but once a week they have a podcast. It's a video podcast that you could watch on twitch.tv or YouTube, or you could just listen to the audio version on iTunes. They have over, I don't know, over 100 episodes, I believe, and it's just a really cool, like, a funny podcast. They do talk about, like, gaming stuff, but it's just fun to listen to them, like, joke around and, like, just tell jokes pretty much. And it's just funny to listen to. It normally goes, like, 2 hours or something, and it's one of those podcasts that really helped me get through school. When I was listening to it, it was just, like, it would just make the day go by so fast. And if you like, the gaming stuff, or you just want to check it out, I would certainly check it out because it's one of those that are it's really funny. If you want to laugh, you're going to listen to that because I've laughed so many times while listening to that. It's crazy. But that is my list. If you want to make a video response to this, go ahead. If you want to check out Stevie Breach's video, that link will be down below. And thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you guys later.